Yo. Ty Butler. We live on YouTube. We are on Twitter. Follow us on TikTok as well. Want to give some people a chance to log on here. Hit us up in the comments, man. I want to hear from the people. We are talking about the Knicks because once again, in a place that we are all too familiar with in the NBA, a star reportedly wants out. Now, Doc Rivers last night, I give him credit, man. It's a tough spot to be in, but he's telling people Giannis has never requested a trade. That has not happened yet. Technically, he can be right, where Giannis didn't go to the front office and say, I want to be moved. But we're not stupid, man. We see what's happening. We also hear the rhetoric coming from Giannis himself. And he's talked about how, he's committed to Milwaukee for this season, but that can change. You see him after the loss to the Knicks, seemingly frustrated. They had lost, 7 games in a row? And he's like, yo, when's the last time I lost 7 straight games? And now he's hurt for the next 2 to 4 weeks. So that adds another piece to this thing that is quite interesting. And I was on the radio earlier, ESPN New York, with Bart Scott saying, I got to make this happen if I'm the Knicks. This is a trade I have to make happen. And I understand, now because he's got the calf strain that's going to sideline him for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, there can be some apprehension because we have now been conditioned to, in our minds, every time we see calf strain, we're like, uh-oh, Achilles, done for. And if you're a Knicks fan, it's also like, Met fans go through this where it's like anything that can go wrong will go wrong. The moment we are ready to win the Eastern Conference, we trade for one of the 4 best players in the league, and that dude tears his Achilles. Like that would be such a Knicks thing to happen. But I think what you can do, and once again, hit us up in the comments. I think what you can do is you make this trade a month from now, and there's no rush to bring him on board. You wait until he's 100% healthy, because people will bring up Halliburton. Halliburton hurt his calf in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs, man. This is the highest level of competitive hoops. And this dude is on a team that thinks it could win a championship. So he's rushing back and he tears his Achilles. The Tatum injury was just weird because Tatum didn't have a calf. Tatum wasn't playing on a calf strain. And I was at the game. Tatum was giving it to the Knicks. That was just bad luck. Same thing that happened with Kobe. Kobe didn't experience a calf strain. He just was playing a ton of minutes in that season for the Lakers that they were 17-25, and he dragged them to the playoffs as a 7th seed. Durant had a calf strain he suffered in round 2 against the Rockets and tried to come back towards Achilles. So yes, there is a correlation between those two things. But I think if you allow this dude to properly rest, you don't rush him back, you'll be fine. So what does that trade look like? R. Moore chimes in. He says, I give up Cat, Yabusele, Dadier, Kolik, and the 2026, whatever picks the Knicks can. That's a bad trade for the Bucks. Like, if the best I'm getting back is just Cat, I'm not getting any picks. Remember, the Bucks don't have their pick this year. So you got to do something similar to what Phoenix is trying to do. And it's despite not, you traded all these picks away. So we got to try to recoup some of that. So this has to be expanded to a 3-team deal. And I think if we're being honest, the best packages come from other teams. Like the Spurs have young players and draft picks they can give up. The Rockets have young players and draft picks they could give up. The Hawks have young players and draft picks they could give up. And this is the cost of the Mikal Bridges trade, where if you don't make that deal, 5 first-round picks, that sounds a lot more appetizing for Milwaukee than what you currently have. That's that's the way that's the way this thing works. When you take the big swing, and this is like, I'm not going to criticize Leon Rose for it, because I was on the radio at the time of the trade when it broke, and it was just like, wow. Um, I think you did overpay for Bridges, but if you felt like this was the missing ingredient to a team you thought could win a championship, you make the deal and you win the title, and no one cares about how many first round picks you gave up. I thought it was interesting that there were a bunch of Knicks fans who, you know, claimed they didn't watch the Nets, and then all of a sudden, Bridges comes, and it's like, oh yeah, we love Bridges. So you didn't watch the Nets, and yet you watched them enough to love Bridges. Anyway, we don't have to rehash history. The Bridges trade makes the Giannis one a lot more difficult, because if I'm Milwaukee, I'm not really interested in just other players. I want some draft capital. They're about to go through a rebuild. You stretch Dame's contract. It also makes the Miles Turner signing just so mystifying. And then you trade Giannis, you want some picks. I didn't write 2026. I don't know where that came from. I mean, as many picks as possible. The Knicks don't have a ton of picks, man. That's why every person you hear talk about this says they have to include another team. So 2026 first round pick. The Knicks have via Washington is top 8 protected. The Wizards have, I want to say they have 3 wins on the year. So a top 8 protected Wizards pick. Yeah, they're 3-17, and they play the Celtics tonight. They're going to get rolled. So the Wizards are going to be able to keep that pick because it's top 8 protected. There's no way they fall out of that with given how bad they are. The Knicks do have their own 2026 first round pick, and we get to 2027, they have their own. But then it gets difficult because 2029 is gone. 2031 is gone, and then it's like every other year because you're not allowed to trade picks in consecutive years. So the Mikal Bridges trade puts them in this spot to where you just are strapped. You don't really have a ton of draft capital. You don't really have a ton of draft capital. They don't have their 2027 first round pick. 2028, it's the least favorable of New York, Brooklyn, and Phoenix if New York and or Phoenix is 9 through 30. 2029, no first round pick. That's going to Brooklyn. You have your own in 30, but as I mentioned, 31, that's going to Brooklyn. So you're going to need to get another team involved. But I make this trade, and I talked about this earlier, man. For all the folks who are, man, I can't give up OG Anunoby. Guys, OG's, and he's been upgraded to questionable for tomorrow's game. I just saw that. Was it Stephen Bondi who put that out? OG Anunoby is now listed as questionable for the Knicks' next game against the Jazz. So it looks like there's a chance he can play tomorrow against Utah. I like OG as a player. He is one of the best defensive wings in the league. And that type of value is not to be underestimated or underrated as you are a team embarking on what you hope is a long playoff run. But Giannis at the end of the day, right? And OG, what really scares me about that contract and why people get so mad at me when I say it, but I think deep down they also believe it. They just love OG A 5-year, $212 million contract given to that guy is spooky. Now, I get why you do it. You have to sign him. And then remember, there was a threat he could go to the Sixers. So you gotta lock him up. You gotta give him his bag. But it's a scary contract because he's always hurt, man. Like he's always hurt. You essentially led yourself to believe that 2 years ago you lost a playoff series to the Pacers because you had guys that got hurt. Mitchell Robinson was out, OG was out, and then Brunson in Game 7 breaks his hand. Last year, OG got hurt. Now he was there for the playoffs, but he got nicked up during the season, and now he's been out with a hamstring injury. So those lower extremity soft tissue injuries just are recurring for him. And it's not that I'm hating on the kid. I think he's been great since coming to the Knicks. I just don't love the contract. I can't trust that his body is going to hold up for an entire season. And because the Knicks are talented enough in this watered down East, they can tread water. They can get by. And they're 13-7. They can get by. But if you're winning multiple playoff rounds and trying to win a championship, you need this guy to be healthy. And I just can't count on that. I think obviously, and I'd be curious if anyone disagrees. Since we have to include Cat in the trade, there's no real hesitancy there, right? Like everyone is just cool with that, and it's no disrespect to Cat. Cat, I think's been awesome as a Knick. He continues to be one of the most frustrating players in the league. Just because he's so talented, he sometimes gets himself into just like the silliness, foul trouble. It's just like the dumb fouls that take him off the court that you just cannot afford. But he's a great player, man, a perennial all-star. I'm not knocking him at all. But he's also a defensive liability that can lose you a playoff series, especially when you also have Jalen Brunson on the floor. You got two bad defenders. The best teams that are well coached and have the ball handlers and ISO guys that can take advantage of it are going to expose you. And we saw that in the playoffs last year. Now, the Celtics had an opportunity to do it, but I just think their game plan wasn't their game. The Celtics were, and this, I guess, can be excused by they won the championship, but that was an arrogant bunch, including the head coach. That was just like, yo, we have our style. We're going to win playing the way that we do. We're not going to alter and adjust based on who the opponent is. Because if you have Cat and Brunson on the floor at the same time, or even if you don't have them on the floor at the same time, you're picking on those guys and picking on them to the point where the team gets frustrated, the player gets frustrated, and you take them out. Now, I don't mean physically take them out, but you take their heart out. But the Celtics wanted to just jack up 93s a game, which, again, that's their identity. It's how they won a championship. But the situation called for you to be smarter, and they were not able to do that. Indiana was able to take advantage of it. So with all that said, man, as good as Cat is, and he's a great player, top 15 guy, it's Giannis, man. It's Giannis. Armour says OG needs to start running in the summer for training. All players should straighten their legs. I don't think it's a conditioning issue. Some guys are just injury prone. We see it with the Yankees with Stanton. Some guys, and OG's been like that his whole career. Some dudes are just injury prone. OG with the Raptors was always hurt. So it's not like we're shocked by this. It's who he is. You just hope that It's like a quota. You get it out the way early so it doesn't affect the biggest games of the year. To his credit, he played in 74 games last year. Played in 74 games, but 50 games the year before, 67, 48, 43, misses time. That's just what tends to happen to him. You just hope that it doesn't come at the inopportune time where the Knicks are in the midst of a playoff run and their best perimeter defender isn't able to be out there. Hit us up in the comments. I want to hear from the Knicks fans. I am excited because there's a chance, and I'm not a Knicks fan, but if Giannis comes to New York, like the type of energy that already exists at the Garden, but around this team nationally with a star of that caliber. That just elevates the level of play for everyone around. Giannis makes his guys better, and it's gonna hurt parting with guys. Like you got to make people like pretend real life is like 2K, where you could just override trades and just play GM and say, you know what, here's Landry Shamet for SGA. Let's just do that trade. Doesn't go down like that, man. In order to get a great player, in order to get an all-time player, you've got to be able to give something up. So yeah, it's gonna hurt a little bit sentimentally because you want to see this core together. But I just think that it's something worth doing because you have to decide: are we trying to win a championship? What's our goal? Is our goal to win the title or is it to make the NBA Finals? If our goal is to win the championship, and and we're watching one of the four best players in the league, a two-time league MVP, defensive player of the year, finals MVP, we're watching him essentially tell the world he wants to come to our team. We see the East is watered down, but there's a Western Conference team we're going to have to play. And it's either going to be Oklahoma City, who might set the wins record, or it's going to be a team that was good enough to beat OKC. So there's some danger coming from the West. I need to arm myself, equip myself with enough firepower to win 4 playoff rounds. Is this group that I currently have, as presently constructed, good enough to win 4 playoff rounds? Especially when Mitchell Robinson, I'm still confused as to what the ideology is here. Like he started the season missing their first 3 games. And it wasn't like he was coming off of an injury or surgery. It was just he finished last season healthy, played in the preseason, then he just wasn't physically good enough to start the year. So at this point, he's a liability. We've been doing the whole, well, when Mitchell Robinson comes back, we did that last year. He's back. He doesn't play every game. So I don't feel comfortable with that. OG, there's that injury history that I just talked about. I don't love. And I also don't love the fact that my 2 best players are defensive liabilities. If I can get Giannis, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. I'm doing that in a heartbeat. I saw a couple of trade packages or potential packages to get Giannis that I found interesting. And again, like a lot of other teams have better packages. No Diddy. Because you'll see that Houston, I don't know if I would do this, but like Houston could give up Şengün, Fred VanVleet, and a first round pick. They could give up Şengün, Reed Shepherd, and a first round pick. If I'm Milwaukee, Reed Shepherd's got to be in that deal. But the reason why I say I don't know if I would do that is because That team is playing very well right now, and because you have those young bulls, it means your timeline isn't like this is championship or bust. And I get KD's what 37. So at some point, like you got to win in these next couple years. But I love having the youth around Durant as opposed to just immediately speeding up my timeline, getting much older, being bereft of depth and the young talent on the team. And now I'm just hoping and praying we can get past Oklahoma City in the next 2 years. Now, gun to my head, I probably still do it, but I'd have some trepidation just because my best player is 37, and this sounds counterintuitive, but I just love the idea of him having a young core around him to where, like in year one, he's able to get comfortable and maybe we go for it in year two. And I actually think they could win the West. I wouldn't pick them, but they can win the West this year. Kevin Zwicker says the current Knicks roster has a good chance to make the finals. With Giannis, they can win it. Need Giannis to pull a AD and say, I want the Knicks and only the Knicks. Now, the difference is AD was up for an extension, and Rich Paul comes out, puts that statement. He's like, yo, don't trade for Anthony Davis because he's not signing an extension with you. So that scared a lot of teams off. Giannis, if you take a look at his contract, he's got one more year after this, and then a player option for 2027, 2028. So I guess technically, if you're trading him at this deadline, Giannis can do the same thing and say, yo, I'm not signing an extension with you. But what that team can do is just roll the dice and take the chance and say, all right, you don't have to sign the extension with me. Your contract's not up for another couple years anyway. We're just going to roll the dice, see if we can win this championship. And then if we win it and you walk, cool. Like it sucks that you walk, but at least we were able to get the title from you. At least we were able to get the title from you. But if you're a Knicks fan, that's what you root for. You root for him to use however much leverage he has to say, I'm not signing with any other team than the New York Knicks. Now, Brian Woodhorse on Get Up earlier shed some more light on this. And let me try to pull it up here. He said, because, Greeny asked him, where could Giannis end up if he leaves in Milwaukee? The Knicks would potentially be on Giannis's list, says Wendy, but the feel would be that Giannis might expand it. So the longer this goes on, he could expand it. Now, I also wonder if that's Giannis trying to put pressure on the Knicks to get this deal done now before, the Bucks open the door for all these other teams to negotiate a potential trade. But that's another thing. And I talked about this earlier because people have wondered, well, what is the risk in just waiting? If Giannis wants to come to the Knicks anyway, why not just wait? See what you can get done this season. Push that can down the road until we get to the off season. And I think in a perfect world, that could make sense. But here are the things that also come into play and could disrupt that plan. Once we open the door for other teams to negotiate with Milwaukee, even if Giannis gets traded to a team he didn't initially want to go to, he now has time to fall in love with that situation. If he gets traded to San Antonio and he's playing with Wemby and he's like, yo, this is great. We could win the championship. And they get bounced in the conference finals in 7 games to Oklahoma City. Why are you not running that back? You've got De'Aaron Fox balling, Dylan Harper. Castle's probably going to be in the trade, but Wemby, like you've got a bunch of young cats on that team hooping. We get to the conference finals. We lose to OKC, who had 75 wins on the year. He could change his mind and say, yeah, I did want to go to the Knicks, but now this is a great basketball situation for me. I can see myself competing here for the next half decade. Why not? So That's the risk you run. Kevin Zwerker says, best case scenario for the Knicks. Giannis said in that meeting, I'll ride the season out and reevaluate in the offseason. Would have access to trade more picks then. And you could get more teams involved. It just gets complicated because of the Knicks not having their own picks, and with the contract situation, you got to get more teams involved so there can be a redistribution of assets to help them facilitate this trade. Reminds me of the Melo trade. Would be better roster-wise to wait in the offseason, but you risk someone landing him this season. Yo, you guys got to stop with the whole Melo trade revisionist history. I talked about this earlier on the radio. The further you get from something that happened, the more you are inclined to change the facts and the details surrounding it. And then the more people repeat it, it just becomes reality. So the Knicks and the Nuggets back in 2011 agreed to a blockbuster 3-team trade. And if we look at the trade details, the Knicks parted with Wilson Chandler, Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, Timofey Mozgov, and a 2014 first-round pick. They added Chauncey Billups, who was really good until he got hurt, Sheldon Williams, Anthony Carter, Ronaldo Balkman, and Carmelo Anthony. And the Knicks sent Anthony Randolph and Eddie Curry to the Wolves. Got it. Can y'all stop pretending like the reason Melo's Knicks didn't win was because, man, could have used more Wilson Chandler minutes? Raymond Felton, like it was a nice, cute story at the time. And I remember they were a fun group. Felton and Amari were awesome together. Remember, Amari had that streak where he scored 30 points. The pick and roll between those guys, it was awesome. But that's not why the Knicks didn't win. The Knicks didn't win because Amari, who was second in the league in scoring, he had his health decline. And he became a victim of his body breaking down. If Amari had been the same player he was pre-Melo trade, then I think the Knicks had a chance to. I don't know that they were going to win the finals because Miami was so good with the big three, the Heatles. But the Knicks had a chance to win more playoff series than they did. And that, to me, was the biggest impediment. It was the health of Amari Stoudemire. It wasn't because they gutted the roster and they got rid of all these guys who none of y'all believe would have been contributing factors. Like, legitimately contributing to the point where it's like, man, I think all of a sudden we can beat Miami. That's not what happened. There's such revisionist history when it comes to that. We got to chill out with the whole Melo trade was bad. It wasn't a bad trade. It was a great trade. Now, we can debate how successful it was when it doesn't end up with you winning a championship. How successful was it when the peak was winning one playoff series? You couldn't get to a conference finals. Never really got a chance to see you up against Miami. But I don't think it was a bad trade. And people, in reflecting on the Melo trade, say, "Oh, it was awful, man. He should have just waited." And then all the details surrounding the trade, why it happened, when it happened, afraid of the lockout, Melo wanted to get paid. Like, there's so much that could have gone differently. Obviously, would you have loved to keep a lot of that roster together and pair him with Melo so you can have more depth? Absolutely. But I don't think depth was the reason why they didn't win. Though their two best players ended up having bodies fail them. Amari's knees, and then remember, Melo had a knee issue, reconstructive knee surgery. It just, didn't happen, and I think it had more to do with health reasons. But as far as the Giannis trade, this is one of the and some people hate it, but one of the beauties of the NBA is the never-ending drama. The never-ending drama. It's fun. It's fun. Player movement excites people. The potential of landing one of the best players in the league, which either turns you into a contender or significantly adds to your chances of contending. That stuff is fun. That stuff is fun. So I'm enjoying this story. I don't think we're going to get a resolution anytime soon, especially because as you know, we learned today, that calf strain is going to knock Giannis out for the next 2 to 4 weeks. And even then, if I'm Milwaukee, if I'm Giannis, I am doing everything in my power. It's a lost season. The Bucks are going nowhere. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure I don't rush this guy back. And by the way, there's a chance if you're a Bucks fan, there's a chance last night was the last time you saw Giannis in a Bucks uniform. That injury is going to knock him out for a significant period of time, which would be smart for all parties involved. If you're Milwaukee and you want the most amount you can get cashing in on this asset, you want him to be 100% healthy or as close to it as possible. And if you're Giannis and you're looking to get to a favorable situation, you want to be completely healthy. You also want to be able to get back and not have your season end to a more significant injury or end because of a more significant injury. But if you're a Bucks fan, there's a chance last night was the last time you saw Giannis in a Bucks uniform. And the Bucks fans have gone through this before. If you're old enough to have watched Kareem, and I wasn't old enough to watch him, but you know, we all know the story of him winning the championship. What was it, year 2 with the Bucks, and then that was all she wrote as he goes to my Los Angeles Lakers. Kevin Zwerker says, a little off subject, but I think the fact that baseball doesn't have these flurry of free agent moves or player movement like the NBA and NFL really holds it back. I talked about this earlier, man. It's amazing to me how baseball still hasn't figured this part out, and it feels pretty easy to do. Now, maybe it gets solved when you have um, a salary cap because then there's a max contract, and you know how much are we negotiating when the most we can offer you is X amount. But players become free agents 3 days after the World Series. The World Series, let's check. Jays Dodgers game 7. So the World Series ended on November 1st. So by November 4th, you were eligible to become a free agent. It's now December 4th. Nothing has happened. You have an opportunity to capitalize on the tremendous buzz you got from an incredible World Series, Game 7, extra innings, stars colliding. We've you know stamped a dynasty with the Dodgers, headlined by maybe the best player in baseball in Shohei Ohtani, who just won his 4th MVP. I mean, baseball is popping right now, and we've got a chance to have an extension of that where the world is watching, and we are a large topic of conversation by having a free agency frenzy. And yet we got crickets. We've got Devin Williams signing with the Mets. I mean, who cares? So now on Sunday, we're going to get the commencement of the owners' meetings. And I'm like, all right, so what does it actually mean when the owners get together or I should say winter meetings? We're going to have winter meetings. So what does that mean, winter meetings? Well, this is an opportunity for all the general managers to sit together and have conversations about potential trades and free agents. And I'm like, well, what the hell have these guys been talking about the last 5 weeks? They've been on airplane mode. These GMs who have had conversations for the last 5 weeks all of a sudden get to the winter meetings and now things are supposed to pop off. This is what y'all call fun. It's insane, man. Player movement is exciting. I know sometimes the older folks, the older generation, they can't get down with it because, back in the good old days when men were men, we had teams, players loyal to their teams. I get that. But yo, it's fun, man. It gets people talking. It's a content machine. And anything that generates content is great for your product. In addition to having games being played. Because in your off season, you want to stay in the news. Just like the NBA does with the draft and free agency, the NFL kills it with the draft and free agency. All of these sports have figured it out except baseball. And I think that maybe the cap can fix that, but call me skeptical. Baseball's got to figure this out. I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight to the program. Hit me up at Ty D Butler on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Ty D Butler. Wanted to get into the Giannis conversation tonight just because it's like one of the biggest stories in the NBA now, right now, if not the biggest story, especially because it involves the New York Knicks. It involves the New York Knicks. And the Knicks have an opportunity because they could just think about that. They have become such an attractive destination. They've got a chance to add a top 5 player in his prime to a team that already is a championship contender. So you can just get better. That's fun, man. I'm looking forward to continuing to see this all break down. I want to see how this unfolds. Feels like other leagues are using the current iPhone while MLB is still using a payphone. Shaking my head just behind on everything. Yeah, man, and I love baseball. I'd love to get there. That's another thing. We hot stove. What's an MLB hot stove? When nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. We're calling it a hot stove. It's not a hot stove. It's not a hot stove at all. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Once again, hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Hit subscribe, man. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the love, y'all. Chiming in, hopping on here today. I'll be back tomorrow. My man Dexter Henry's gonna be on the show. We're gonna chop it up, get to this NFL talk. Jets, Giants, go around the NFL. A huge NFL weekend. Big NFL weekend. I'm excited to break it all down. So we'll be back tomorrow to do that. Peace and love, y'all. Holla at your boy.